And how's it going, everyone? Welcome to No Fun Allowed. And today I am joined by three incredibly special guests. These delightfully, not so delightful YouTubers cover the range of D&D. There's only so many D alliterations I can come up with. So let's kick things off here. How is it going, Josiah?
It is going. Speaking of de-alliterations, I guess that's me, Dungeon Dad. I'm doing good. How are you today?
Oh, I'm fan-frickin-tastic. Flutes Loot, how's it going?
Going great here. It's been an interesting day. Been up for a long time, but you guys are just so energizing. I'll be fine.
Oh, I'm nothing but a ball of delightful energy that raises everyone's hopes and spirits around me. I've totally never heard that in my life ever. Fred, how is it going?
Well, it's going House of D&D. That's how it's going. But no, I'm drowning in my own mucus. So if I sound like a frog or some other kind of strange bog creature, it's a product of stuff.
Well, that just means you're working on your voice acting for your next session. Alrighty. Without further ado, let's dive into these questions. So when it comes to running tabletop role-playing games and even playing in them, there is a sad truth of the matter is that we have to work for it. You cannot just open up a game of D&D and it's all sunshine and rainbows. You got to look up some rules. You got to prepare some maps. You got to know what dice do what. You got to figure out all these things. What makes that hassle worthwhile? What makes you come back to the table time and time again, knowing that there's all these hurdles in the way? Dungeon Dad, kick us off with that.
Yeah, I think that the answer to that question, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, is the shared experience, and that it's a truly unique thing, right? Like, there's this whole element of storytelling, but like you can get a bunch of friends together and watch a movie, and that's great. And at the end, go, wow, that was a great movie. But like when you feel like you've created that story together, and also you didn't know where it was going to end up when you started, right? Like everything about it is completely original, and I don't think there's many ways to replicate that. And I mean, there's the argument like, yeah, you can do improv, and that's all kind of like feeding the same part of your brain that enjoys doing that. But also when you factor in like the dice as a third party unreliable narrator kind of thing, and the combat and like the game itself, which mixes in with all of that, I don't know, it's just such a unique experience that there's not really, at least I personally have never found anything else that gives me the same experience than playing in a tabletop game. It's just a very unique and special and specific thing that once you've done it, you're either like, yeah, I want to do this a bunch more, or not for me. And if you're one of those people who says, I want to do this a bunch more, then you're just in the life now, fam. Like that's it. You're hooked. You're just doing this forever. Yeah, it's just, I guess the short answer, it's a very unique way to tell stories, which we don't really have in any other capacity.
For sure. Once you go tabletop role-playing games, you can never go back. Flutes, what are your ideas on this? What makes you keep on coming back to that table?
This was kind of a hard question for me to think about, but I think it really is kind of like what Josiah just said, where it really feels free. I got hooked on Skyrim for a while, and that was fun. But then when you start to really get into it, you see all the bugs or all the limitations to what you can do. But playing a tabletop RPG like D&D, it really is just like open-ended in what you can do. You could be as clever or as dull as you want to be, and it'll be fine. But one answer that I think most people wouldn't say, that if I'm being honest, one thing that keeps me coming back is people say I'm good at it. And so that like positive feedback makes me want to keep doing it. And so it's there was a video that Matt Colville did a long time ago where he talked about like being a river to his people from that movie, Lawrence of Arabia, I think it was. And so many of my friends think I'm so good at DMing that I've like really wanted to hone my craft and like keep doing this for them, be a river to my people. And some of my friends from college will reach out and say, hey, I've not had good D&D since playing with you. Will you please run a game for me? Now that a lot of us are playing online and that's more doable. And so it's a way to help me stay in touch with people. as well as just a creative outlet.
So it sounds like you're too good at your job and you are putting other people out of business. Thanks a lot. Fred, what makes you keep coming back to the table through all those trials and tribulations?
Okay, so for me, it's real simple. It's fun and friends. I came from tabletop wargaming, which, if you've ever played 40k or Warhammer and tabletop wargaming, you don't really develop friends. You develop competitors, people who try to figure out how to crush your army. And you might chat about stuff and so forth, but you're really not friends as such. And that went on for years. So I found the only way to really sort of develop really good friends was actually through Dungeons and Dragons. And you don't do that by reading a book. I love fantasy, and I used to read a lot of books, but it's not like you sit around with friends reading books. I mean, how does that work in terms of sort of interacting with people? So that's why I keep doing it. It's friends and fun. And when I could drink, the transition from partying to Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop roleplay games was fairly easy, because all you do is you add some dice and maybe some miniatures and an adventure, and you're still drinking. So it didn't make any difference. We were still talking garbage along the way, but So that's me.
Well, if you're not playing competitive D&D, then maybe I can hook you up with a competitive game and we can see how that goes. For me personally, what makes me keep on coming back to that table is the fact that I don't know what is going to happen. I know for a fact when I play any video game, I know what's going to happen around the corner, because either the story is predictable or the mechanics are there in place, or the Skyrim guard's always going to say the one thing, right? But when D&D, I don't know what's going to happen, whether that be me being a player or me being the DM. I don't know what is going to happen from this encounter. I don't know what the other people are going to say. I don't know any of these things, and that mystery, the wanting to know what's around the corner, whether that be me, rolling up to see if it's a random monster, or if my party is gonna all of a sudden talk to the bugbear and now they're gonna be best of friends. Those things are just so intrinsic to what makes me go through all the intensive labor that is being a DM. So, when it comes to all that, there is a lot of people who put in some work. There's a lot of people that put in a lot of work when it comes to DMing, and I think it's important that no matter what, never put in more work than is worth it. That's entirely subjective, though. You could be one of those DMs that does, work for 5 minutes of prep for each week, and then you're good to go. Some DMs need the 4 hours of prep for a 4-hour game, and you're just gonna have to figure that out yourself. You're gonna have to figure out what is worthwhile for your game enjoyment.
Yeah, I think for a lot of DMs, the prep can be just as much fun as running in some cases, right? Like if you're someone who really enjoys world building, definitely understand 99% of what you're doing will never be seen by another human soul, and that's okay. If you still enjoy doing it, then like whatever, that can be just as fun as doing like really quick prep for your 2 encounters for that night or whatever and then going. But like it's important that you have an understanding of what's gonna happen, right? Like you have to have that expectation your players are not gonna see. It's the whole iceberg situation, right? Like they're gonna see the stuff that they want to see and the rest of it will be completely ignored. And that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with doing that if you enjoy it. But I know that as a DM, that was something I used to do a lot, was over prep. And I'd be like, oh man, like they didn't even like ask the dude at the bar like what his name was and what his wife's name was and what their 3 kids' names were and like what college they go to, and like because it doesn't matter, right? But like if you like doing that, then hey man, for your own benefit, you're allowed, right?
Along that line though, Josiah, when you over prepare like that, sometimes your players can tell that you just have a lot prepared, and they really feel like wherever they go, you're not just flying by the seat of your pants. You actually have something for them to interact with, and that can really improve the game. That's an awesome way to do it. So in my opinion, over preparing, like it can be an issue if you don't have the time for it, but it actually pays off even if they never interact with some of those things. They can tell you're invested, and they can tell that your world is something they can interact with and they don't get bored.
Definitely.
And
It's
the
fun to
best
have
part
those
is
moments.
no work ever goes to waste. If they don't interact with those NPCs, then guess what? Those NPCs are showing up in the next place. You have a cool dungeon. Guess what? No matter what, they're going to the dungeon. Whether that might be this session, that might be 10 sessions from now. They're going there.
Yeah, well, that might work if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, but if you're playing Star Wars Saga and
Oh,
you've done 24 pages of prep on a particular world, and they decide there's starships in this game, right? We can fly to any planet we like, and by gum, they did it. So for me, I found that prep just doesn't seem to work very well. I do prep, I just don't do a lot of prep. In fact, the games where I had no idea what I was doing and I had just come from work and I'm like, panic, I'll fake it. And they come like, oh my Fred, that was the best game ever. And I'm like, they don't even know that I had no idea what I was doing. Oh my God. So, yeah.
I do think that, yeah, there's definitely like, if you're gonna over prep, you need to do so in the correct order, right? Like there's
Yeah.
a pyramid of how we do things. So it's like at the very top, this is what's going to happen in today's session. So like do that, like get that done. Once that's done, you still have like 3 hours. You're like, I got nothing else going on. Move on to the next thing, which is like, okay, we're broadening the scope of things that may happen. And then if you get through all that and you're like, I have nothing planned this weekend, then you can start building adjacent countries and stuff, like things that they likely won't interact with, but that will make your world seem more tangible. For sure.
You flesh out the neighboring country, you flesh out Boblin the Goblin's, cousins, and then all of a sudden your group's got a clown fiesta of a party. It's important to note that no matter what, your party's gonna have a good time as so long as you are, doing whatever it is that it needs to be. And that's what makes this game worthwhile running. So go ahead and tell us down below, what makes you keep coming back to D&D, or keep coming back to DMing or GMing or judging or whatever the frick you want to call it. What makes it all worthwhile in the end? Go ahead and tell me those things because I would love to hear it down below.